My first premise is a strong democracy requires a stable government and strong opposition. A functioning democracy requires both accountability and ability to make decisions quickly. Now, accountability comes from strong opposition, and quick decision making comes from stable government. So, democracy therefore weakens if either government is unstable or oppositions are ineffective. Now, in Nepal and elsewhere, when parliaments are hung and opposition are fragmented, what happens is laws implementation delays, policies are inconsistent, and that makes public loses the trust in the government. And what remains is the cell of democracy without its true spirit. Now, my second premise is hung parliaments leads to coalition politics, and coalition politics often leads to policy paralysis. Coalitions are formed when no party gains a clear majority in the hung parliament. Coalition governments are often unstable government because of conflicting interests among the partners. Like in Nepal, for instance, KP Sharma Oli dissolved the parliament twice, first in 2020 and second in May 2021, because of conflicting interest among the partners. Therefore, hung parliament results in unstable government and weak policy making. For instance, if we can see in Nepal, there have been frequent changes in government. 12 prime ministers in these 16 years. This is tragic compared to other democracies. It obstructs the long-term vision, long-term planning, and makes government becomes too busy surviving instead of serving. Now, my third premise is weak opposition enables arbitrary rule and corruption. The government which is unchecked by strong opposition is likely to act without accountability, and weak opposition lacks in strength, numbers, strategy, unity to resist such actions. Now, therefore, weak opposition often enables unchecked governance and weak policy making, and often leads to corruption. Now, my fourth premise is, if in Nepal, oppositions are more symbolic rather strategic. Instead of being a watchdog, it becomes a passive observer. Similar concerns are also raised in countries like India and Hungary, where voice of opposition is shrinking down both in strength and visibility. Now, my fourth premise is hung parliament and weak opposition together creates a vicious cycle. Hung parliaments produces unstable government, and that instability demoralizes and fragments the opposition further. These things creates like instability and weak policy making patterns. Now, in Nepal, we have seen in recent Nepal's parliamentary term, the opposition had changed its tone multiple times from silent to aggressive, depending upon the shifting of alliances. Now, these things confuse the voters and uncertains the policy direction. Now, my fifth premise is ultimately public suffers the most, because public depends on government for stability, for development, for justice, more importantly. And when hung parliaments and weak opposition together creates an imbalanced political scenario, public is the ultimate victims of these systems, be it youth migration or economic stagnation, lack of health reforms or poor infrastructure building. Every delay in policy and every act of impunity hurts common citizens the most. Now, what can be done? There are some ways. First one is electoral reforms. Modify the system to avoid excessive party fragmentation. Some countries use minimum thresholds to avoid hung outcomes. Second one, political maturities. If parties somehow develop a consensus culture, overpower hunger, and oppositions also must prioritize the nation over party politics. We have seen for the political leverage, opposition sometimes even doesn't care about the reputation of the nation itself. Like in 2016, when for the first time India started responding to the terrorist attacks, they launched the Uri surgical strike. And obviously BJP was getting a lot of advantage out of it. it was getting very famous and all over the India because of this work. And obviously opposition didn't like this. So they tried to push a fake narrative that these are the photos of the incidents are fake and there are no real true evidence until those evidence literally got verified. So to some extent that downgraded the image of the nation for some time and played with the reputation of the nation and even broke the motivation of the army. So sometimes politicians, to sign their party politics, they have to also care about the nation, the reputation of nation, while signing their party politics. Now, last and very important, when strengthening the institutions, when opposition fails, we have to strengthen the institutions like judiciary and anti-corruption agency to check the power when opposition fails. Now, also, at last, the true power of democracy not lies in how loud the government is, but also how wisely the opposition responds. Thank you.
And